In the Perspectrum podcast, we discuss controversial topics. Outside of this context, Michael and I are both working professionals. While doing this show, we are not acting as agents or representatives of our respective institutions, and none of the views that we express reflect the outlooks of our employers. So don't come to my office and throw toilet paper at me.
And I don't have an office, but don't come to my cube.
Welcome to the Perspectrum. I'm Nathan Seelove.
And I'm Michael Bloom.
And today we have a bummer.
Yeah, this one's going to suck.
This one's going to suck. Not because of bad content, but because of horrible content.
Yeah, exactly.
We decided that we're only going to be doing the one segment this week because when you're talking about a humanitarian crisis to the scale that Gaza is currently at, I don't know if there's anything that you can, I don't know if there's anything you can talk about at that point. Like I see, honestly, I see a lot of YouTubers and commentators do entire shows where they talk about a bunch of different things and Gaza's only one of them. And you know what? I find that impressive that you're able to do that. I really do. I don't think I can do that.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is Michael actually told me, like texted me before we were going to do this, like, hey, I'm wondering if we should just, have this be the whole episode, while I was already thinking like I might need to do that. So like, I think Michael and I are both feeling very similarly right now.
Yeah. Yeah. This shit is fucking crazy. Yeah. So we're talking about Gaza, if you haven't picked that up on it so far. I think we should start with like a little bit of the level setting on like what is going on there with like the IDF and like the military side of things, because it doesn't make any fucking sense, which makes the humanitarian side of things all the more galling.
Yeah.
So, it's been 21 months since Hamas attacked Israel, which was like the powder keg, or I should say the spark in the powder keg that led the IDF to invade Gaza and kind of the escalation of the conflict. So, consider this the caveat. Obviously, that her attack was horrific. 1,200 people in Israel were killed by Hamas. 251 people were taken hostage. We've said it before, relative to their population, this is the equivalent of 12 9/11 attacks.
Yeah.
Truly horrible. But also since then, about 60,000 people in Gaza have either died or been killed, with 100,000+ being injured. And so relative to their population, that's about 2,700 September 11th attacks.
And here's the thing that you need to understand about that number. As horrible as 60,000 deaths is, that is certainly
An undercount.
a major undercount.
Yeah.
So that number is the official number that most organizations have been using. That number comes from the Gaza Health Ministry. And the thing that you need to understand about the Gaza Health Ministry, now Israel likes to pretend, the Gaza Health Ministry, you can't trust their numbers because they're controlled by Hamas. And that's a bunch of bullshit. Historically, the Gaza Health Ministry has been reliable in terms of the casualty count for various different conflicts that have happened between Israel and Palestine, specifically Israel and Gaza during in the past. But the reason why you can't trust that number now is not because it's a fabrication. It's because the Gaza Health Ministry no longer has the infrastructure in order to actually count deaths the way that they used to.
Yeah.
All right. That's why that number has actually remained fairly stagnant, despite the fact that we keep hearing story after story after story after story of like today, 100 Palestinians were killed. So at this point, honestly, that number is almost certainly in the hundreds of thousands. Now, we'll know more after this shit is over. Like as what often happens with these types of mass humanitarian crises. It's always harder to figure out exactly what that specific number is when it's actually going on because, there's still a conflict in that area. But honestly, at this point, I can guarantee you that the numbers are going to be, at this point, they are probably in the hundreds of thousands. And if things continue the way that they are, we are looking at the millions.
Yeah, which is a lot considering the total population prior to this war kicking off was 2.2 million in the Gaza Strip. So, pretty staggering numbers here. So, why is this happening? It's a good fucking question. The ongoing military presence there is pretty inscrutable unless you are thinking about it from the perspective of a far right, like, government in Israel that is seeking to take over Gaza and establish like an ethno state there. So that really is like the only explanation. Like, so, 500 former officials in one, like, signed on to one letter. These are former Israeli military and security agency officials that signed on to a letter asking Trump to end the war in Gaza because they know that he's got the influence and the power, the leverage over Netanyahu. Yeah. And they know that the military presence there is no longer, is in no way beneficial at this point. And these are security and military officials who have, believed at the start of the war that this military action was like the right answer. And one of them said, quote, "We have reached a conclusion that everything that can be accomplished by force has been accomplished, and that it is that is primarily dismantling Hamas military formations and governance. Yet the third objective, which is more important and more urgent to us, which is bringing the hostages back, can only happen via a diplomatic deal. And the war has been dragging on without a purpose, certainly not one that relates to national security, and we think it's time to end."
Yeah. But the thing everybody needs to understand is that the purpose of this war, at least from the point of view of the Israeli government, was never about Hamas. And we know that because we have various Israeli officials that we have quoted on this pod before, on record, saying things like, there are no innocent civilians in Gaza.
Yeah.
Or referring to Gazan civilians as animals.
Yeah.
All right.
Or decrementing the number of male deaths in Gaza from the number of civilians killed because their perspective is all men in Gaza are Hamas.
Yeah. Which is just objectively not true. All right. So that's one thing that I need you all to understand. And I need you all to understand that not just because of propaganda pushed by the Israeli government, but also you need to be able to identify these talking points in American politicians. Because one of the most common things that you will hear in American politicians, especially Democrats right now, who are, some of which are starting to kind of say critical things about Israel, the things that you're going to be hearing them try to say is, oh, well, this is a strategic blunder on the part of Israel. They are strategically doing bad things, and it's causing all of these civilians to be dying. And, they really need to amend their strategy to make it easier for these civilians to get their aid. The truth is, their strategy is working perfectly because their strategy was never to try to get them aid. Their strategy was to try to prevent as much aid from getting to them as possible and to use food as a weapon of war. And we know that that is what is happening. So initially, during the ceasefire that happened earlier this year, approximately 600 aid trucks from the United Nations were allowed into Gaza. That has taken over all of the humanitarian aid to Gaza. That number is now 60 trucks a day. 60 food trucks, down from 600 earlier this year, which already wasn't enough.
Yeah.
60 food trucks a day to feed a population of, to Michael's point, 2 million people. Well, definitely less than 2 million people now because of all the ones that have been killed, but 2 million people, 60 trucks for 2 million people, 4 aid sites Just 4 fucking aid sites.
Yeah, 4.
4 aid sites to feed 2 million people.
Yeah. 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 And this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is a big problem. So it is backed by the U.S. government and the Israeli government, and was put in place with zero experience and zero proof that they could actually execute something like this to distribute aid in Gaza, replacing any other aid providing foundation. So the UN was pushed out in order to consolidate aid through this one foundation with, again, no proven track record. It's been significantly criticized by other aid groups because it doesn't appear to be able to do the job. It, kind of said proudly that it's distributed 82 million meals since it was established in late May, which sounds like a lot until you recognize that the estimate is that there's 2.1 million people there right now, which means that equates to less than 1 meal per person per day over the 50 days that the organization has been there. And the GHF says that this is because there, quote, isn't enough aid coming into Gaza, which very well is true, except for the fact that there's thousands of aid trucks a couple of miles away full of food, water, and medical supplies that are not being allowed into Gaza. And
by the way, the argument that they used for the creation of this organization in the first place was, Gaza keeps seizing aid, so we have to take this over.
Exactly.
Except that in a New York Times article, they actually reported that Israeli officials admitted that there's no evidence of that.
Yeah. There's no evidence that Hamas is stealing food.
Yeah.
But also, let's take a step back. Let's take one fucking half second to think about the claim here. Because the claim is, right, by the Israeli government that Hamas is stealing food and then selling it on the black market at exorbitant prices in order to fund their operations and feed their people and and therefore aid is essentially aiding Hamas unless it's controlled by this Gaza Health or Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. But let's take a second to think about it. What would collapse the price of food on the black market in Gaza?
Yeah.
Enough food. The solution to taking that, pulling the rug out from under this claim by Hamas, which again is not substantiated and officials in the Israeli government have said is not actually true. But if this were true, the solution would be to flood the fucking place with food.
Yeah. Yeah.
All you do by restricting it is make the price go up more, right?
Yeah. As if that doesn't sound bad enough, these food aid sites are basically traps.
Yeah.
They are basically just traps. So according to Human Rights Watch, basically what keeps happening is number one, the pathways to get to these food trucks through the various parts of Gaza that are actually populated. So the actual parts of Gaza that are populated versus the area in which these aid sites actually are requires a trek through a bunch of dangerous terrain that is where the movements are heavily controlled by Israeli forces. And there have been multiple cases reported by various eyewitnesses, according to Human Rights Watch, where just randomly a tank will just blow up a car full of civilians or open fire on random people because they slightly stepped the wrong way.
Yeah.
And then when they actually get to these food sites, Israeli forces, and this is according to, this is not just according to people on the Palestinian side. This is according to actual military contractors that are American that have been witnessing this. It is a matter of policy for Israeli forces to open fire on civilians seeking food, even if they don't necessarily constitute a threat. Now, what they claim What the Israeli government claims is they're only doing that if there's any level, if they detect some type of level of threat. But during various mass casualty events, doctors have reported to Human Rights Watch that many of the bullets that they found in these people that had been shot were in the back.
Hmm.
Like there was one case where there was a doctor that reported that 2 of their patients during a mass casualty event were shot in the back of the legs. All right. In one case, there was a U.S. military contractor that was ordered by a senior IDF official to open fire on these 2 children that were being lifted above above these fences that were set up to try to control the population. They were lifted above these fences to avoid them getting trampled. And the senior official said, "All right, well, y'all got to open fire on those kids." And the contractor refused to do it. And the senior officer, the senior IDF officer, responded by saying, quote, "Tell your men to shoot them now, or we will shoot them." All right. Opening fire on crowds of civilians desperately trying to seek food has become a daily occurrence. It is a matter of policy. And this is all being documented. This is all being reported. This is all being witnessed by people on the Palestinian side, by doctors who are working in Gaza, by reporters who are working in Gaza, and even by military officials that are watching this happen.
Yeah. Yeah. The Red Cross reported that since the launch of these new aid sites, again, there's only fucking 4 of them, but since the launch of these aid sites at the end of May, there has been a rapid increase in the number of these mass casualty events. So there have been 21 separate mass casualty events since that time, including like toddlers, teenagers, elderly, mothers among those people shot. So tell me how they constitute a threat. And the Red Cross reports that their field hospitals there have treated more than 2,200 weapon-wounded patients since the establishment of the new aid distribution sites. Again, in May, which is more than the whole year of 2024.
Yeah.
So, like to Nathan's point, there is just clear evidence that they are escalating violence in these aid zones with like this honeypot of fucking relief of starvation bringing people into those areas.
Yeah. Yeah. And then just opening fire on them, even if they don't constitute a threat, which honestly, even if one person in a crowd constituted a threat, you don't fucking open fire into a crowd of civilians. You just don't do that.
Yeah.
And also, like, these people are fucking desperate because they have no food.
Yes.
They're going to be pushing people and probably beating other people up in a desperate attempt to try to get the food that you are restricting.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you use that as an excuse to open fire on the entire goddamn crowd.
Yeah. And this food insecurity problem is like critical. So more than 1 million Palestinians currently are experiencing emergency levels of food insecurity, with significantly growing risks of severe malnutrition and related diseases. We're talking about more than 50 kids dying of malnutrition since, Israel established a blockade in March. We're talking about 470,000 people facing mass starvation and children facing severe malnutrition. So 22% of the population facing mass starvation. And nearly 1 in 3 people in Gaza is currently not eating for days at a time. So especially for children, pregnant women, the elderly, like these people are especially at risk, and they're attempting to be treated in hospitals, but there's like almost no healthcare infrastructure left in Gaza at this point. aside from some of these like field hospitals and stuff. So their ability to actually address malnutrition is really limited because like
Yeah.
under severe starvation, you ironically can't just fucking give them food. Like,
Yeah.
especially for kids, if you like once people are starving, if you give them the wrong food, it will kill them.
Yeah.
And so coming back from starvation requires significant ongoing medical care. And that is just to avoid death. As part of starvation, people will have permanent, lifelong maladies and disabilities, especially kids who will, you know, grow up with a ton of immune deficiencies and chronic issues, like if they even live for the rest of their lives, right?
Yeah.
One specialist with the British Red Cross, who is an advisor on food security, nutrition, and livelihoods, said, quote, "This is not just a crisis for today. It's a crisis for generations to come. Malnutrition weakens the immune system, leaving people, especially the most vulnerable, unable to fight off disease and infection. The long-term effects will echo far into the future. Without immediate and sustained humanitarian assistance, we risk impacting not only this generation, but the next. With chronic malnutrition comes lifelong health impacts, which can be irreversible in children. We need a sustained flood of support, not just to save lives today, but to safeguard the future of entire communities." But then again, like, it's hard to avoid the pretty natural conclusion that a multi-generational impact is the point.
Yeah. It is absolutely the point. It is absolutely the fucking point. All right. Listen to the rhetoric of officials within the Israeli government. Listen to the shit that they say. And also, again, I gave you an example earlier of a senior officer ordering a contractor to open fire on children and threatening, if you don't do it, we will. All right? A senior Israeli officer. That's not a few bad apples. That is a senior Israeli officer. This is policy. This is a matter of policy. The opening of fire on civilians who are desperately trying to get food, which you restricted in the first place, that is a matter of policy. So when you hear any politicians in the United States or anywhere try to make it seem like this is a strategic problem, oh, they need to do better. No. What they're doing is exactly what they mean to be doing. It is clearly what they mean to be doing.
Yeah. Especially in light of the fact that the international community, the Israeli community, the security community in Israel agrees that there is no remaining military objective here.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing more that the military should be doing in this place. They should be reaching an expedient like ceasefire and peace deal to return hostages and then, allow fucking aid to flood in. So the continued presence here is incriminating.
Yeah. No, it is absolutely incriminating. At this point, according to the UN, 92% of all homes in Gaza have been destroyed. 92%. The place is a fucking apocalyptic wasteland at this point.
Yeah.
All right. They have destroyed an entire group, an entire society, an entire people. And if that wasn't enough, now they're slowly starving them to death.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the United States continues to be complicit. Donald Trump was recently asked about the humanitarian food aid, the humanitarian food crisis. All right. He was recently asked about that. And you know what his response was? You know what this motherfucker's response was? Oh, well, I gave them $40 million worth of food and no one gives me credit. Why does no one give me credit? I deserve all the credit. I deserve so much credit. I give them $40 million in food. You motherfucker. Most of that food's not going to end up getting there anyway. Only 60 food trucks are allowed in each day. Most of that food is not going to get in there anyway. And you are the motherfucker who has continued to give them weapons, continued to give them armaments to carry on this bombing campaign, which has destroyed 92% of all homes in Gaza. And you want fucking credit? Shut the fuck up, you piece of shit. And look, I don't want you to just think I'm only blaming Donald Trump for this, because there are so many other officials in the United States that need to fucking do something about this. Congress could do something about this. All right? Congress, if they wanted to, they could pass a law. They could pass a law to end to end the sale of weapons to Israel. They could do that. And if Trump tried to veto it, they could override the veto. But of course, they don't have the numbers for that because they're all a bunch of fucking genocidal maniacs just like Trump. They're willing to sit idly by while this country, this government, this rogue government slaughters civilians and starves them to death. And look, I understand that there's a lot of lobbying involved in this. I understand that. And I understand that these people want to keep their seats. I understand that that's like always the most important thing. Keep your fucking seats, you know? And I know that you're used to fucking over Americans. I know that you're used to fucking people over with healthcare by lying about things like universal healthcare. Oh, universal healthcare is going to be terrible. Keep giving me that sweet, sweet money, fucking insurance companies. I know that you're used to that. I know that you're used to blood being on your hand, but this is a river of blood on your hands. This is a river of blood and devastation that is on your hands. And there's got to be a fucking line. Is there seriously no line on this? Is there seriously no line? Because look, I'm just a regular everyday civilian. I'm just a regular everyday person. And every day I'm looking at pictures of kids the same age as my fucking daughter just wasting away. And I feel like I'm not doing enough. But these people actually have power. Like, is humanity just done? Is humanity just gone? Do people have no humanity anymore? Do people have no fucking empathy? The most obvious thing in the world should be to look at this. And I don't care what you fucking call it. Slaughter, genocide. It's obviously genocide, but I don't care what you call it. Just fucking stop it.
Yeah.
Like, it should be the most obvious thing in the world to look at this and say, I need to do everything I can to stop this from happening. I need to do absolutely everything in my power to stop this from happening. And the biggest victory that just happened, and I can't believe that this is being called a victory, but the biggest victory that just happened was a resolution in the Senate to end weapon sales to Israel, where a majority of Democrats voted for it. Whoop-de-fucking-do. The Democrats don't even control the Senate. And the fact that it was a majority and not all of them, that's a fucking victory? It's a victory that you still have over a dozen Democrats that are still complicit at this late date? That's a fucking victory? Look, everyone needs to pay close attention to what people have said in the past, what people have done, the voting records of these politicians, and you need to make sure that they suffer in the future. All right? If you live in a state where your senator voted to send more weapons to Israel, honestly, I would say at any point, but especially recently, especially as it's been clearer and clearer and clearer, which, I mean, look, I just wanted to point out, Michael and I from the very beginning have been pointing out that, have been saying that we need to cut off weapons. Like, we've been saying that from the very fucking beginning. But at this late date, if they're still refusing to do that, they need to be primaried and they need to be excommunicated from the Democratic Party. They need to be excommunicated from polite society because they are voting for an atrocity. When does it end? When does this end? I mean, is there seriously such is there seriously such apathy and such brazen disregard for human life that you can see this? You can see this happening. And you can know that you voted for the taxpayer money to be sent to keep it happening. And just go about your day. Just go about business as usual. Because, look, the fact that I'm a taxpayer makes me feel complicit every fucking day. And if this moral test, if this bare minimum moral test is one that you can't pass, then you should never have power. You should never have any level of power. Democrat, Republican, I don't care. You should never be close to any lever of power. So listeners, you pay attention to who these people are, because you know you can't trust them anymore. Because, you think that they haven't seen these pictures. You think that they haven't seen the intelligence of how bad things are. You think that this is just something they're ignorant about. They know. Of course they know. They're politicians. They're being given briefs about this. They know full well what is happening, and they are still staying silent. No, sorry, they're not staying silent. They're actively supporting it. With their votes, they're actively supporting it.
And now we'll end our show as we usually do by saying, fuck Benjamin Netanyahu and his far-right government.